With the start of the 2024-2025 season just around the corner, we take a look at the keys for the New York Islanders' success this season and what would constitute a success. We're going to break all that down and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have got a busy show to discuss today, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. And you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. We are rapidly approaching the start of the new season. And with that in mind, we've been talking all off season about the free agency and the draft and the moves that the Islanders did and did not make, and what's been going on in training camp and roster battles and injuries and all of that stuff. But now I wanted to take this special episode and just sort of put everything on the table. What is it going to take for the New York Islanders to be successful? And what does success mean for this team? So we'll start off with what I think is the obvious key, and that is that the goaltending has to be better. Last year, we saw problems with Ilya Sorokin. He had a career worst year, a 3.01 goals against average, which is well above where he normally is by about half a goal, maybe more. A 908 save percentage, about 15 points lower than his typical save percentage. A lot of reasons for it. Part of it overwork. Part of it could be that back injury that required off-season surgery that we still don't know a lot about the details of. But regardless, Ilya Sorokin is going to have a bounce-back season for the New York Islanders. And while it is extremely likely that he starts the season either on IR or LTIR, they are going to need better goaltending this year. Now, the good news is in Marcus Hogberg, you've got a third goalie in the system who I think you can have more confidence in. So if Sorokin ends up missing a week, 2 weeks, if he has to be on LTIR, it'll be at least 24 days and 10 games. I think Varlamov is capable, especially early in the season, of, if it's 10 games, starting 6 or 7 of those games, and that Hogberg can give you 3, maybe 4 starts over that time period. And maybe even if he starts 4 games, if you go 1-1-2 or 2-1-1, that would be absolutely fabulous. There's a big difference in the confidence that the Islanders seem to have in their third goalie in the system, Hogberg, now than they did last year about Ken Appleby or, Jakob Skarek, who also, by the way, seems to be playing better this year in training camp. In the long run, it is obviously important for Sorokin to be a part of this team. He is that good in goal, and they're going to need him, whether it takes a month or 2 or even if he only misses a couple of games, they need him back. They need to be, in my mind, conservative with him, because better to have him miss games in October and November than in March, April, or maybe even May. So that's a very important thing. The next important thing in my mind is you have Patrick Roy as your head coach from day one. And we've already seen some of the differences in the way he's running training camp. Unlike Lane Lambert last year, Roy is practicing the power play and the penalty kill in training camp. That in and of itself is a step forward for the organization, and hopefully it reaps some benefits. He is working the team hard, making sure they are in shape, skating them. He is holding players accountable much more than I think we saw under Lane Lambert. And more importantly, he is making it clear to this team from day one of training camp the type of hockey he wants them to play, how quickly the players adjust and actually play the style that Patrick Roy wants them to play, and do so comfortably. That will be a key to success for this team this year. Another area that is going to be important is secondary scoring. You look at last year, and this team had, let's face it, some limited secondary scoring. You didn't have a great year from Anders Lee. You didn't have a great year offensively from J.G. Pageau. The fourth line, not an offensive powerhouse, but I think this year the potential is there for the bottom six to be more productive. Hopefully J.G. Pageau gives you more than 11 goals. If Anders Lee can give you 20 again and stay healthy, Casey Cizikas and Kyle McLean, I think, have a better chance of providing you with more offense than Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck did a year ago. And then, who fits in on that fourth line? Simon Holmstrom, Pierre Engvall, Julien Gauthier. We're still waiting to see who wins those final spots on the roster. But, there are candidates here who I think can give you a little more depth scoring than what we saw last year. And, if two of the bottom six forwards can give you at least, 18, 20, 22 goals, I think you're looking at a much better bottom six. And having a little scoring depth is definitely part of the way this team can improve, and it's a key to the team's success at some point this season. You can't just rely on 3 or 4 players. It can't all be on Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal and Brock Nelson and Anthony Duclair and Kyle Palmieri. It can't just be those guys and those guys alone who are giving you the necessary offense. So getting a little more secondary scoring going to be critical for the New York Islanders going forward into this year. And not just secondary scoring. They need their bottom six to also provide them with a spark. And for years, it was the identity line, right? So you had Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck. They'd go out there, forecheck aggressively, be physical, set the tone for the New York Islanders. I think it's going to be a little different this year based on the game that Patrick Roy wants to play. I think we're going to see a little more speed from the bottom six. That's why Julien Gauthier is getting an extended look, why Liam Foudy is getting an extended look as a possible bottom six candidate. Simon Holmstrom looks like he's going to play in the bottom six. He can add a little juice to the speed aspect of the lineup. I think instead of outright physicality, we're going to see a little bit more emphasis on speed, and we'll see how that pays off. Hopefully, they're able to play the kind of hockey Patrick Roy wants them to play, and it ends up benefiting this team, and they take a little step forward. So those are our first three keys here for the New York Islanders going forward. We've got a lot more coming up on the show. We've got 7 more keys to discuss. Plus, we'll have our prediction and our Islanders birthday of the day, a former first-round pick of the Vancouver Canucks who spent parts of 3 seasons with the Islanders in the early to mid-2000 teens and later played for the Rangers and Devils. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet, and there's so much to bet on in October. Baseball playoffs in full swing. Mets and Yankees still in it right now. You've got college and pro football. Islander season gets started in a week. Check out all the odds on the Islanders. Maybe you want to bet on the season opener, whether or not the Islanders make the playoffs, how many goals or points Matthew Barzal or Noah Dobson is going to get. The options are all there. So get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Head over to FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We continue with our keys for the New York Islanders to have success, to make some progress over the course of this season. And let's turn our attention a little bit to the blue line, the defensive core. It's always important. Last year, we know this team struggled to get the puck out of their zone. They ended up being backed up and stuck in their own zone for 90 seconds, 2 minutes at a time. And it looked like a power play, but, it wasn't a power play. So that has to change. And the first thing that has to happen is the blue line has to stay healthy. Last year, 3 of your top 6 defensemen missed significant time. I'm talking 25 games or more. Ryan Pollock, Adam Pelech missing 25 games each. Scott Mayfield missed 41 games and only played 41. He played 40 of them on a broken ankle. You got to stay healthy. Hopefully, Alexander Romanov continues to develop into an even better defensive defenseman, and occasionally he gives you a little offense. If Mayfield stays healthy, that really should help as well. I like the idea of Riley being re-signed. I think he gives you something steady there on the third pair. And then obviously, while we all want Noah Dobson to continue to give you that 60, 70, 75, dare I even say 80 points offensive production-wise, he's got to be a little more physical at times, and he's got to be smarter with the puck in his own end and get you that transition from defense to offense. Those are little things that may not show up necessarily in a box score, but if Noah Dobson wants to be considered an all-star defenseman, a Norris Trophy candidate, these are some of the things he's got to work on to really become a genuine #1 defenseman, an all-around player in this league. So getting all of that accomplished defensively is important and a key to the Islanders' success this year. Another key, or should I say 2 keys, the penalty kill and the power play. Let's start with the PK because it was dreadful last year. Dead last in the NHL. I think it can be better. It has to be better. You bring in Tommy Albaline, somebody that Lou Lamoriello believes in. Hopefully, the changes that he makes, plus the way that it's being coached and the fact that they're practicing in training camp and in preseason, working on the PK, that's got to be a benefit for the Islanders for sure, but it has to pay off. And I am not expecting the Islanders to all of a sudden go from dead last to a top 5 or top 10 PK. But get me in the low 20s, high teens, get me close to the middle. And I think I'll be a lot happier. You go from 32nd on the PK to 20th. That's worth 3, 4, 5 points over the course of a season, maybe more, depending on how much better you get. And the thing is, you've got guys on this roster who are experienced penalty killers. J.G. Pageau, experienced penalty killer. Casey Cizikas, no doubt, an experienced penalty killer. We are going to see Anthony Duclair possibly on occasion killing penalties. Simon Holmstrom, 5 shorthanded goals last year. Having a healthy Scott Mayfield should help the PK. And again, if Pelech and Polak can stay healthy, that helps the PK. And, you know, whether it's Duclair, whether it's Kyle McLean, getting players out there who, you know, are experienced but just need to do the job the right way, it would make a big difference to get the PK back to respectability, even if you're not necessarily going to get it to excellence. 71.5% penalty kill. That means that 28.5% of the time, worse than 1 out of every 4 times you're shorthanded, the other team was putting puck in the net. That is too high. Let's get it into the 80 percentile as far as kills go, and we'll go from there. As for the power play, it was 19th in the league. I think the additions of Maxim Tsyplakov and Anthony Duclair help the power play be better. All of a sudden, you're adding talent. And, you know, Anders Lee may still see some power play time, but I think, you know, Maxim Tsyplakov may take over that net front presence and possibly give you, you know, you could have Lee on one power play unit, Tsyplakov on the other. You got 2 guys now who can fill that net front role, and I think that definitely adds more potential for the New York Islanders power play. I like the idea of Riley being back because Mike Riley is a solid power play quarterback, and hopefully Noah Dobson takes a step forward as a power play quarterback. The tools are there, but the decision-making isn't always there. It's got to be there, and hopefully it will be. Another key to success for this team is the ability to clear the puck out of your own zone. We've seen it too many times. It's like a broken record where it was happening under Lane Lambert. It happened a little less frequently under Patrick Waugh eventually, but it cannot be part of this team's reputation that you can't clear the puck out of your zone and you blow late leads. And those two things are very closely related. You've got to play a 60-minute game. You cannot be up 3-1 and take your foot off the gas. You can't go into a shell, and you can't be giving up 35, 40 shots per game. And again, all of that is tied to the fact that this team's breakout from its own zone leaves a lot to be desired. It's got to be better. And again, part of that is coaching, and I hope Tommy Albaline helps. I hope Patrick Waugh looks at that as something he needs to do and can do. And this team has just got to be better at clearing the zone and making the transition from defense to offense and just tightening things up. It's all related to, you know, Patrick Waugh's coaching and health on defense and it helps the goalies because they're not going to face 40, 45 shots a game. These are keys to the Islanders' success. And then another key, how do the newcomers do? Realistically, the two big ones are Anthony Duclair and Maxim Tsyplakov. Duclair, he's an established NHL guy. And I hope he can give you 20, 25 goals. Anything more than 25, I think, is a big bonus. Playing with Bo and Barzy, I think, is a benefit for him, an opportunity for him. But the thing about Anthony Duclair, I'm not expecting him to be the next shutdown, Selke trophy winner, but he's got to be responsible and back check. If he can't do that, he may fall into the doghouse. And, he has a past relationship with Patrick Waugh. Waugh coached him in juniors. Hopefully, they communicate well. They're on the same page, and Duclair at least gives you the effort that you want coming back checking, playing in his own zone. Tsyplakov is kind of the wild card. If he can give you 20 or more goals, I think you're sitting pretty. The question is, how long does it take Maxim Tsyplakov to adjust to the NHL game? The rink is narrower. The game is more physical. The game is a little faster than it is in the KHL. If he can adjust, if he can be ready and be a top six forward, even if it's not from game one, but if it happens in January, February, or even in March, you get him integrated into the top six come playoff time, you're looking at a big step up, because all of a sudden last year, the Islanders had 4 top six forwards on their roster. If Tsyplakov and Duclair both do well as newcomers and they pan out as legitimate top six guys, suddenly you've got 6 top six forwards. That is a huge difference, a 1/3 improvement in that sense. And I think that, that is going to be vital. So, still a couple of more keys to look at, plus our Islanders birthday of the day. We've got a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the 2024 NHL season preview on Locked On NHL. It's a 6-episode series bringing you the best local insight to make you the most informed NHL fan heading into the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Some more keys for this team. And what is the top six going to provide this year? We got pretty good production from the top six, but I think we can get better. Matthew Barzal was a point-a-game player for the first time since his rookie year. Adding a legitimate winger like Anthony Duclair, I think, makes a big difference for this team. Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, they both had really solid seasons. But when you add a legitimate top six guy to the wing, they can be even better this year. Keeping Kyle Palmieri healthy on that second line is important. He and Brock Nelson are both in contract years. And that is motivation for these guys. Kyle Palmieri has got to stay healthy. Brock Nelson, you want another 30-plus goal year from him. Again, with this being a contract year, he has a lot of incentive to come up and do something to have a big year and play well. Let's hope that is indeed going to be the case. If you get that top six to be really productive, whether you're sticking Simon Holmstrom in there, Maxim Tsyplakov, who I think is the better choice, Julien Gauthier, if he makes the team, Oliver Wahlstrom, if he stays on the team and does really well. The opportunity is there, but you've got to get that going. And then what happens at the trade deadline? I think that's also going to be a big key. This Islanders team is very similar to the team we had a year ago. I think, adding Tsyplakov and Duclair helps. I think, Waugh cutting down on the defensive mistakes and the penalty kill improving can help. But if you want this team to get out of the muddy middle and really be a team that can do some damage in the Stanley Cup playoffs if they make it, some kind of a move has to be made at the trade deadline. Now, if the Islanders are in it and playing well, adding whatever that missing piece is, whether it's a scorer, whether it's a physical guy, because this team may need a little more physicality, especially if Matt Martin does not make the team or play a big role on the team. Whatever that missing ingredient is, a puck-moving defenseman, a goal-scoring wing, I hope that if that opportunity is there, that Lou Lamoriello makes a smart move that improves the team's chances for this year without sacrificing the future. Don't give away draft picks or top prospects. Go out there and play to the best of your ability and make this team better without giving up the farm. So I think the trade deadline could be pivotal. If the Islanders are out of it, you got to start thinking about trading away guys like Kyle Palmieri, maybe, or Brock Nelson if you can't sign them to a reasonable short-term, 3-year extension at most. But I don't think this team is going to be out of it at the trade deadline. If they improve a little bit, they're going to be in the hunt. And again, the right move at the trade deadline without selling the future away can really help this team improve this year. It is not far-fetched, but a lot of things do have to go right for the Islanders to be significantly better than they were a year ago. To me, the Islanders will be a little bit better. The teams around them may also be better, and the Islanders are going to be in the fight again, somewhere between 6th and 10th in the Eastern Conference. And again, I think either just make or just miss the playoffs. It's familiar territory for this team, but it is right now where I think they are. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And, well, this weekend, Saturday, is the 37th birthday of former Islanders winger Michael Grabner. Grabner, a native of Villach, Austria, first-round pick by the Vancouver Canucks in 2006, joined the Canucks in 2009, 2010, became an Islander the following year, and spent parts of 5 seasons on the island. Scored 34 goals for the Islanders in 2010, 2011. That was by far his best season. Grabner, very, very fast, but not always able to finish after that first year. Had trouble finding the net at times, but when he was on, 34 goals for the Islanders, later played for the Maple Leafs, the Rangers, the Devils, and the Coyotes, had a couple of 25-plus goal seasons for the Rangers. When he was on, he was dangerous, and boy, could he create breakaways. He just couldn't always finish them. Finished his NHL career with 640 games, 175 goals, 276 points, and 40 playoff games, had 9 goals and 15 points in those. His best game as an Islander, the dramatic February 13th, 2011, Islanders visiting the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo. You have Mikko Koskinen starting in goal for the Islanders, although he would be relieved by Al Montoya. Ryan Miller in goal for Buffalo. And our Islanders' birthday of the day, Michael Grabner, got the scoring started just 40 seconds into the first period. Kyle Oposo and Franz Nielsen with the assist. Islanders up by a score of 1-0. Islanders fall behind 4-3 after 2 periods, but then Michael Grabner, an unassisted goal 3 minutes into the third, that evens it up. The game ends up going into overtime, tied 6-6, but in the extra period, 2 minutes, 55 seconds in, Michael Grabner completes the hat trick. Andrew McDonald and Kyle Oposo with the helpers. Islanders win in OT by a score of 7-6. Al Montoya, 12 saves and 14 shots to earn the win. And the Islanders finish with a nice comeback victory. 3 goals for Michael Grabner, his only hat trick as an Islander. He had 6 shots on goal. That led the team in just 15 minutes and 6 seconds of action. Michael Grabner, a fast, exciting winger to watch. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we will be back on Monday. We will recap the final preseason game, which is Friday night against the New York Rangers. So make sure you join us for that. And we'll have all the latest news, notes, and happenings as we get ready for the season. The final cuts will be made. We will probably do a short video, and keep your eye out on Twitter or X as we update you on any cuts, trades, waiver claims, waiver players placed on waivers. Whatever's going to happen this weekend, we'll be on top of it here at the Locked On Islanders podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.